Good morning, Dewo. I am going to return to the video that started the show. As we go along, I'll show you statistics. Some of it showed before I was ready to prepare to show them to you, but that's okay. We are going to see a whole lot more than what you are aware of that's going on with crime and violence in the United States. I'm Dr. Uwa Onyioha Osimiri, and I am your host on Ntomodo. Ntomodo is Igbo Nigerian word for words of wisdom that I share with you to add to your repertoire. Sometimes I may bring guests, and sometimes I don't, depending on what the topic is. Today, I may sound subdued in my presentation today because the subject matter is not anything that yields exuberance. It's not something that allows me to be my usual self because it's very dark, it's very negative, and it's quite frankly very sad. We live in very difficult times, not just in the United States, but all over the world. It has been a very difficult week. I look at the news that comes from my country, Nigeria, where a lot of people are being killed because of ethnocentrism, to some degree, ethnic cleansing. Some of that is going on in different parts of the world. When you look at what's going on in Ukraine, between Ukraine and Russia, that's mass murder under the guise of war. But today's focus is on mass murders and gun violence here in the United States. Thus far, the United States has experienced 214 mass shootings just in 2022. The Gun Violence Archive has counted that much thus far. There's been more than 17,000 people who have lost their lives due to gun violence alone. In the United States, this is something, unfortunately, that you don't see too many people wrapped up with. That is ownership of guns. As citizens around the United States are begging for gun reform, a recent poll from YouGov and Yahoo News said that just under half all Americans believe Congress should make gun laws more strict. But mass shootings continue to occur. Just yesterday, I believe it was just yesterday, the Senate voted down a bill that will make it possible to just bring it up as a discussion, to discuss gun violence. Every single Republican shut that down. This is after the Robb shooting, after the shooting in Buffalo, Columbine, all those different mass murders. They couldn't bring themselves to vote, to even discuss it. The United States has far more lax firearm laws and policies compared to other countries. The federal right to own a gun is even baked into the United States Constitution, and it's known as the Second Amendment. Gun laws and regulations also vary from state to state. Some states have more restrictive laws, while some allow far more greater firearm ownership rates for protection and hunting. For protection and hunting. I'm not so sure why an AK-15 is necessary for protection. And if you're hunting an animal, how many bullets would it take to bring it down if it's something that you want to eat? The United States has far more lax firearms laws. America's fascination with guns is killing its future generations, its children. Now schools are not even safe. Kids can't go to school and feel safe. Children pray to come back home to their parents. Parents pray to be able to pick up their children after school, whereas schools are supposed to be where our children should be safe. Some children experience violence in their own homes. So school is supposed to be a place of safety where they are surrounded by people who care about them. At least it's supposed to be that way. But now it's become the killing fields for people who have challenges. Guns have become the leading cause of death for children. Children below the age of 18. And we're not doing anything about it. Now, mass shootings have different definitions by different sources. Some sources say, in particular, let's just quote the Gun Violence Archive and the Congressional Research Service. They define it as an incident where 4 or more people were shot, excluding the shooter from being counted as a victim. But sometimes we look at the media, we see all the pictures of those who have been killed. We listen to the tragedy over and over and over. All of that has an impact on the mental health of those who have to watch this atrocity going on. Not to mention those people who are seriously injured, those who have lost family members. So the killings is beyond just those who are killed, but those who have to live with the horror of losing their young ones. I cannot even begin to wrap my mind around people who refuse, the leaders who refuse to do anything about this. It goes on and on and on and on, following every single incident. Another one comes, but nothing ever happens. There's no follow through. When the leaders don't do anything about these deaths, sick people out there think it's fun. They want their own moment to make history. Some of them think the young people who killed the Columbine High School, they wanted to make history. We all need to be aware of the behavior of certain people who come around us, or even some people that we know. Instead of giving teachers guns to protect their students, as if they don't have enough to do already. Teachers should be trained to identify a child who seems to be having difficulty in school, be supportive and report what they see to supportive authority. We, all of us, must pay attention to social media to see what young people are writing about their condition in the world and threats they make. Sometimes it is a cry for help or their lure of notoriety. The news media also takes responsibility for the coverage. They need to stop covering mass murders the way they are, because it is said that once there is one mass murder, there's usually mass shooting, there's usually another one right behind it because of the coverage that it receives. Some of these people think this is payback to society or to a school for what they've had to go through. And when they see how other people have reacted and how the media is carrying it, they think they could do the same thing. As I indicated earlier, mass shootings in the United States, there's a difference. It's because a lot of people have access to guns. But mass shootings go on. There are other countries that experience mass murders, as I indicated, ethnocentrism and ethnic cleansing. It is a difficult thing for me to talk about today, really. When I pause, I'm trying to just understand why the world accepts these kinds of tragedies. Is this how God made us? I mean, is this how it's supposed to be? Are we supposed to live like this? Some people shrug it off. Some people think it's fun. When we make guns accessible as a tool for vengeance, not for war, not that war is a good thing, of course not, but some people take it out of the war zones and bring it into our society, into our communities. Sometimes the terrorists that we're afraid of are living down the street from us. They're right here in our communities. We go elsewhere to fight them, but we don't want to fight them here in our communities. We give them guns to terrorize the community, but we go outside of the country to find terrorists. There are people who love left behind, who live right amongst us. The quiet young man, because majority of them are men, male. The parents who buy their 18-year-olds guns for their 18th birthday. The young people who hardly smile because of hardship they may feel at home, because of isolation. Those that grit their teeth all the time and never get invited to any events or parties. The ones that get bullied in school. The ones that get called names and ridiculed. We need to teach our children tolerance within the home and talk to children about bullying at school. Sometimes, not always, it produces people with the mindset of vengeance. It's not far-fetched to say that bullying may contribute to mass murders because the individuals who are committing this have a history of feeling out of place in the world. Then we have to ask ourselves, those of us who vote, those of us who refuse to vote, who are we putting in place to manage these incidences? We have a responsibility to be careful who we put in office. I just told you, all the Republicans in the Senate voted against a bill that will bring the topic of guns, gun control, for discussion. How do we solve it if we don't talk about it? The gun lobby is very powerful. We know that. And many of these senators, they get money from the gun lobby. So it's difficult for them to do the right thing. They may feel it in their heart, but because of that money that they get, they will not do the right thing. But then the question is not them. How about you? It's important for us to know that we are responsible for some of what's going on only because we choose to put these people in office. When a person tells you what they're going to do, you should believe it. You don't care about life when it's in the womb. That's not the only place that life should be of concern to you. But that's what we hear. Anti-abortion rhetoric. But when the people are born, when children are born and they're in the classrooms, we allow them to be murdered by men, young men carrying guns, but by their parents in some cases, without background checks. Because some governors have made it so that you can carry guns without background check. So you can't buy a drink until you're 21 years old, but you can buy a gun at 18. Which one is more destructive? These leaders tell you what they're going to do, but you put them right back in the office, but you expect a different outcome. As long as we're not paying attention, these things will keep happening. these things will keep happening. And the sad thing is, nobody's doing anything about it. Nobody cares. Well, let's say people do care, but not enough that we do anything about it. Today, I just want to open it for discussions based on how you feel, how the audience feels about what's going on. I'm going to read some of what comments I've gotten thus far. This is from Nosferatu. I'm so gutted and my heart is broken. I experienced Columbine in 1999. I was a senior in high school, and we had to do active shooter drills. The song Youth of a Nation by POD was done shortly after. The lyrics and video hit me hard, and now we are parents, and our babies are being slaughtered in a place that is supported, or rather supposed to be safe. Teachers are now having to be human shields. This song hits even harder, and I have not stopped crying since the news broke in Buffalo and Texas. GOP stands for guns over people. And you know, the interesting thing is that this same song, Nosferatu, is being used over and over and over. It seems like there's no need to reinvent the wheel. They just use the same song. And as long as nothing is being done, I dare say that this is going to continue. It's not going to go away. It's not going to go away. Nosferatu also says that my 2 young children are homeschooled and will remain homeschooled. The anxiety, PTSD that we as the adults experience, those were in the fray, and those who witnessed it, we never ever wanted this to be something that children would have to now experience. Politicians prefer money. It is not happening to our children, so they don't care. The interesting thing about some of these politicians is that their children, quite frankly, are safe. They're safe. They go to schools. Most of them don't go to public schools. They go to schools where there's a lot of protection around the school. So it's difficult for such a thing, for anybody to have access into schools like that. So many people are choosing now to homeschool. How sad it is. Homeschooling is a good thing, yes, to some degree. But it does, unless there are other homeschoolers, it kind of isolates the children. It doesn't give them the opportunity to play with other kids. But it is better that they are isolated than they die from going to school. Yes, Nos, the politicians have protection for their children. Sometimes people don't care because it doesn't happen to their own children. Nosferatu again. And the police waited 1 hour before going into the school to stop the shooter. That's right. They were told to stand back while these babies were being slaughtered in the classroom. What is the freaking point, excuse the expression, of police? They saved their children and left others' children. Some of the parents were begging in this latest shooting for the police to go in. But the police did not go in. The police did not go in to help. They went in and got their own children. Some of the parents were even being cuffed as they begged, please go in and save my children. Some of them even offered to go themselves to save their children. But this young man had 1 hour to be in a classroom. Thus the devastation. Can you imagine that some of those children could not be ID'd without DNA? Can you imagine that your child cannot be ID'd? And the shooter, even Nosferatu says that the shooter looked into the eyes of those babies and said, "It's time to die." Babies, children, for 1 hour, he terrorized kids and nobody stepped in. Now we find out there was nobody. You know, some of the senators say that, oh, if we have an armed guard, if everybody was armed, then there will be no mass murders. Or we could just close all the doors. Just we should have only one door. That way the police can be mounted, if I may use that expression, in front of that door. But there will be no other exit. So if there was a fire, then what? If there was a fire, then what? Then you may even have more deaths because everybody trying to get out through one exit will be mass casualty. Are they even thinking? Nosferatu says that there was an armed officer who did nothing. So I guess that means that being armed doesn't mean anything. And then Ted Cruz says that we should arm the teachers. He's the one who talked about having just one entrance. So does that mean every facility in the United States should have only one entrance? That's against the fire code. Does he not even know that? Do these people even think? He was a good guy with a gun, Nos says, who did nothing to stop the bad guy with a gun. The notion that a good guy with a gun would take down a bad guy with a gun. It depends on what kind of gun the bad guy has. If he has an AR-15 and you have a shotgun, more than likely, you're not going to be able to do anything. Unless, of course, we all start carrying the AR-15s, which is for war. The only purpose of that gun is to kill. Is that what we want? Is that the kind of society that right now there are some states where you don't even have to have any ID, just be 18. That's it. You can't get a driver's license until you reach a certain age. They have to check you out. You have to be tested. You have to go through a testing before you can get your driver's license. But you can get an AR-15 without going through any tests or anything. Nurse says that an 11-year-old girl survived by smearing the blood of her best friend that was lying beside her. She smeared it all over her so the shooter will think she was dead. Can you imagine? Thank God that she survived. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine getting up one morning to go to school and you have to smear the blood of your best friend to survive because the shooter had a gun in the classroom, I want to share some statistics with you. This didn't just start in America. There's been a history. Let's look at this. Willful deaths, 2014. Malicious accidental, 12,418. 2015, 13,537. 2016, 15,000. It keeps rising. It's 2018 that the deaths through gun violence went down a little bit, but 2019 to 2020 and up to now, I don't have that particular statistics, but it has been rising. Suicides by gun has been rising. If you look at the figures, 21,000 in 2018, went down a little bit in 2015, 2016, it rose, 2017, just a little bit. 2018, it rose quite a bit, went down a little bit in 2019. But what the statistic I really want you to see is the death of children 0 to 11. 900 by 2022, by 2020, 999 babies had been killed. And you can see that it consistently kept rising and rising and rising. It may drop a little bit, but it just, by 2020, it has just skyrocketed. And if you look at teens, the same thing. By 2020, you have 4,142 deaths from 2,318 in 2014. So it's just been rising. Mass shooting in 2014, I'm just going back to 2014, 269. By 2020, 611. Murder, suicide by guns. Look at all those statistics. Gun use, the deaths. If you calculate the number of people dying in the United States due to gun use, you wonder, what's the purpose? Now, if you look at some of the states, I'm going to show you, you look at the states, look at the states where guns are carried without necessarily background checks. Look at that. Look at Florida, Washington, New York. Look at all of these deaths by guns. All these red represents deaths by guns. And we have to ask ourselves, are we killing that many animals to eat as we're killing people to bury? What is going on in the United States? The United States is supposed to be the country that people look up to. But now people are asking, what is it going to take? What is it going to take for the leaders to do something? None says that to get a freaking driver's license, yes, to vote, even purchasing cough syrup requires ID check and more. But getting a gun doesn't require that. Make it make sense. It doesn't make sense. How do you make sense of this? I have a video of a dad, and that's very difficult, so I'm not going to play it, but a dad who was talking about his child, what a beautiful child she was, how she loved life, loved to play softball, I believe it is. But she's gone now. This mother was beating up on herself, wishing that she had not, because her child had just gotten an award. A child that was an honor roll student, did all the right things, destined for great things. And that morning, they went to school. She was honored. She got her certificate. She was proud. She wanted to stay in school. And usually this mother says that she and her husband, usually after these award ceremonies, she usually would take the children out, her child out rather. And they promised her ice cream. They promised her ice cream. They were looking forward to picking her up, to celebrate her achievement. And she's gone now. The world has lost such a bright young woman who God knows what she could have been in the future. I don't want to show all the pictures and all of that, because you can go online, you can see it. It's so heartbreaking. Those pictures, and of course the pictures of the devastated family members. What was the sense? The young man, 18 years old, that went in Buffalo, that shot all those people. What did he get out of that? But you know, he has survived. They arrested him, took him to court, feed him every day. Ultimately, yes, they'll find him guilty. But to what end? What are they going to do to him? What are they going to do to him? Whatever they do to him will not bring back those wonderful lives that he took. The grandmothers going to the grocery store to buy food. The women who just ran from work, ran into the store to pick up food for the family. The gentleman on his phone talking to who knows whom, living. People just going about their daily lives. And a young man of 18 years old decided that they don't have the right to live because they are Black. We're poisoning the minds of young people. The poison is not just the fact that they think they can do all these things. It's the fact that there's no consequence. It makes you famous. The news media carries it on and on and on and on. And I keep saying the young man because I don't want to give their names life. I don't want to call out their names. This is American exceptionalism. A British reporter was asking Ted Cruz, why is it that America is the one place that people have all these guns? And Ted Cruz didn't want to answer that. The question he asked the reporter was, why is it that people want to come to the United States? That's not what people come to the United States for. They don't come here to die. They come here for other things. Ted, pay attention. As long as we continue to vote people in, that don't care, this will continue. Nosferatu says, I would rather isolate the children with them. She says, no, I would rather them be isolated than me on a daily basis thinking that I would never see them again. I can set up play dates over the weekend and I get to control that. Yes, but that's what it has come to. There's a young lady down the street who has a 6-year-old daughter getting ready. No, actually, she's 5. She's getting ready for kindergarten. She just graduated from preschool and they had a big celebration about that. And now she's traumatized. Her little girl is looking forward to kindergarten. All the kids she will play with, some of them from the old school that she graduated from. And now she's looking forward to them being in the same school or perhaps meeting new friends in kindergarten. but she's not sure she wants that to happen because she's afraid of what may happen. You see, you can't say it happened there and it can't happen here. That's the problem. That's the challenge that parents are facing. And as long as there is no discussion about gun control, who knows? What's the next school? What's the next parents? Who are the next parents who are going to be in the same situation because the leaders don't want to do anything? Mass murders is not just unique to the United States in the sense that it does happen elsewhere, but it's in the United States that the kind of guns that are used is available to everybody. Everybody has access to it. If you choose to go buy a gun now, depending on the state you're in, that's it. Go to the internet right now and you type in gun purchases, and you will see recommendations how you get your gun. Not what to do when you get it. Not to go and get training. But here, you can get gun here. You can get gun there. Everywhere there are guns. They got the pictures of the guns, even the automatic weapons. What do we need automatic weaponry for? To protect ourselves? What is it for? And yet it's accessible to everyone. And it's getting worse and worse and worse and worse. I was just so dispirited when I heard that that bill was voted down, that it was not moved forward. There will be no discussion. People are scared to go for walks now, to take children to the park. Why should the community be the killing field? There was supposed to be 5 shootings were failed before they happened, a day after the Texas shooting. Oh, God Almighty. The possibility is there that we will wake up one morning, if we should be so lucky, and here we go again. We hear it again. 5 shootings were stopped. Those are the ones that were stopped. What about the ones that may not be stopped? Who knows who have bought some AR-15s? And I understand gun sales are flying off the hook. Why are we buying it? Why are we stockpiling? I don't know, other than the fact that as long as there's no regulations, people are going to find a reason to own those guns. And I dare say that some of them will not be using it for protection. Some of them will be using it to act out their fantasy. Guns have become the instruments for terrorism within schools, within shopping malls, grocery stores, movie theaters. Where in the world are we safe? Where is it safe to go to now? And yet, you cannot convince the leaders. I want to talk about what goes on in Nigeria as well. The Boko Haram are killing. There's so many different terrorist groups that are killing, just killing. What is the government doing about it? Innocent lives are just being taken just like that. Because guns are all over the place. I dare say Not quite the same kind of guns you find here, but guns nonetheless. I want to thank Nosferatu for her contributions today. Nos is a mother of two beautiful boys, my grandchildren. And as a grandparent, it is frightening for me what could happen. It is frightening to be in a position where you're not sure it's safe to even walk down the street, to even go to the park. Where is it safe? And what happens is children are getting more and more anxious about living. Some of them are taking their lives. For some, it's not even worth it being here. Some are begging their parents, I don't want to go to school. Then when parents have to work, some of them don't have a choice. I want to revisit this whole conversation here. The police waited 1 hour before going into the school to stop the shooter. They're still trying to figure out why. There's so many excuses. Why not? Because he has his ammunition is bigger than what they have. But those who did come were told to stand back while the babies were being slaughtered. Stand back. What were we standing back for? Is that not the role of the police? They're trying to figure it out. I don't want to draw any conclusions because I don't know. The fear for me, if this happens again, are the police feeling empowered enough to go in? Would they go in? Or are these people more armed than even the police? If the police will not go in knowing that an active shooter is in there, if they won't go in there and their kids in the school, what's the purpose? Why call the police? If the police can't do anything, if the police are not able to do anything, what's the purpose of calling them? Because the kind of arms that these people are getting and they're allowed to get is something that the police should have. But even then, for what? The police are supposed to be protecting the society, communities. Are they supposed to be carrying AR-15s? That young man had an AR-15 and a handgun. But then, the police had snipers. They had sniper rifles. I tell you, I'm not convinced that the next one will be less tragic. None says that the police had shotguns and were wearing armor and handguns. Well, if that's the case, I don't get it. If they were equipped to handle that, why were they not in there? For us as citizens, what do? You get this sense of helplessness because you don't know whom to talk to. Who do you turn to? If you turn to the politicians, they're not going to do anything about it. They've made it clear that they don't plan to do anything. So who do you turn to? What do you do? What are your responsibilities? What are our responsibilities? The best we can do is continue to demand that there's action taken. Or for that matter, those people who are selling these guns, should they not be accountable for what these guns are doing? Because the guns are not for shooting game. They're designed for just such things. Mass murder. Should they not be responsible as well? The National Rifleers, the NRA, they're having their, or they had it, I believe it was yesterday they had it. And the former president of the United States does not agree that there should be anything done about gun control. All the Republicans who found themselves on the podium, they don't see anything needs to be done. How about Texas? Beto O'Rourke, who's running for the governorship of Texas, he made an attempt to ask the governor to do something, and he was booed out of the place. The people who, this happened in your state, and you're booing somebody who's saying we've got to do something. So the love of guns is greater than the love of human life. The love for your children. Now there's no holds barred. The kids don't matter anymore. 5 shooting events that were stopped. Potential. Those were stopped. But what about those that will not be stopped? What about those that we don't know about? We're not in everybody's mind, so we don't know what people are thinking. What about the next young person that gets triggered? What about that next young person that gets triggered? They're becoming younger and younger and younger. They can't drink, but they can kill. And you wonder, what is the purpose of them not being able to drink in the first place? Isn't it because it impacts their lives? Because drinking can kill you. Doing drugs can kill you. But they're given weapons to kill. The schools have to do a better job of trying to monitor some of these kids who are being bullied. I'm not saying that it's the bullying that is the direct result. It could be, because some of them have claimed that they were bullied in school. The 2 young men that killed a lot of people, the Columbine High School, they said they were bullied. They were out there to get back at those who did all those things to them. Those who did all those things to them, that put them down, that called them names. And they were prepared to die because they took their lives. They took their own lives. They had that much rage in them. They planned this. They had so much rage in them that they were willing to just take out all those people that made their lives miserable at the school. Some of the parents who think it's okay that their kids are mean-spirited, think again. It's time for us to start talking to our children about tolerance, not bullying other kids. To take responsibility for the behavior of our children. And if we know that our children are suffering in any way that may cause them to do these kinds of things, talk to them, put down the cell phones. Talk with your children, talk to your children, be in their lives If you notice that your child is not wanting to be around other kids or it's not getting invited to events and parties and things of that nature, you want to ask them how they feel about that. Create opportunities for them to vent, maybe to vent to you, but not in such a vicious manner. You go to a restaurant, you see two parents with their children, all of them on cell phones. The kids are on their cell phones, the children on theirs, the parents are on their cell phones. Nobody's paying attention to each other. And when they get home, they all disappear again, all with their cell phones. And we're not talking to the children. We're not paying attention to what they're feeling. Right now, we should be flooding the US Senate with phone calls. Their constituency should hear from them. Have you done it yourself? Have you picked up the phone to call? Go to the internet. There are many numbers available for you to call to find out what you can do. The children are crying out. No excuse for what they're doing, but they are crying out for attention, for help. Their feelings matter. Pay attention to them. You know, sometimes when teenagers get to be teenagers, they think that they're grown now. They don't need to talk to anyone. They don't need mom and dad to pay attention to them. They feel that they're grown. They're doing their own thing. Some of these students, children, they're looking for attention from their peers, but the peers will not give it to them. Are your children having social anxiety? Are they being ignored by society? You know what we need to bring back? I know this may sound silly, this may sound far-fetched and what have you, but the family is so important. We need to bring back Sunday dinners or Saturday dinners or Friday's fish fries. Because you see, what happens is when you sit around the table, when you're not allowing your children to eat on their own in their rooms or wherever, if you're sitting at the table, you can talk to them, you can find out how they're feeling, how their day went, how was school, how was this. Sometimes that's the opportunity. And if your child frequently doesn't want to talk about anything, that's an indication that something is wrong. Most happy children will talk with you. Most happy children will chat with you. But when they're toying with their food or their phone and you ask them a question and it's or they just they're walking out the door, that's when you know they're leaving. See you later, mom. See you later, dad. And by the time you get to the door, they're already gone. They're hiding something. But you would know it because you don't spend time to find out. There are students in schools who are threatening other students because of their race. And some of these, there's a school, I don't want to call this school right now, but the children are being mocked. Young people are carrying Confederate flags around, taunting them, reminding them, we used to hang you. And the children will report, the African-American children will report it to the teachers, to the principals, and the principals will do nothing. Just recently, there's a school where young people were going to march. They were going to march in protest of all of this bullying that they're getting in school. What did the school superintendent do? Threaten them. The school principal threatened them with arrest or expulsion if they dare to go out and protest the Confederate flags in the school. What all the white children are saying about them as Black kids. That's a tinder's box. That's the kind of situation that parents should come to the school and protest and protest and protest. That principal should be held responsible. Because when a group is targeted, there's going to be one kid out there who would agree with the nonsense and do something negative about it. And then, of course, what happens? Our thoughts and prayers are with the family. No, thoughts and prayers don't bring children back. They don't bring the dead back. You've got to do something before it happens. When children come to principals or teachers and tell them anything that they have observed about a particular young person, pay attention to it. Don't dispute, don't disregard it. This is how this happens when we don't address it. And these parents who think it makes their sons men because they're carrying guns. Your manhood should not be wrapped around your guns. There's so many things you can do as a man. Teach your sons what those things are. Positive things they can do, contributions they can make in society. Giving them a gun, an AR-15 is not one of them. You have to ask yourself, what is my child going to do with an AR-15 if not to kill somebody? What is it doing in his room? One day he'll pick it up and he'll take it out there and he'll use it to take lives. Pay attention to what you're doing and what your children are doing. The news media, when you see such things, when you see leaders who are not doing anything to be helpful, say something. Don't coddle them. There are lives at stake when we do nothing all over the world. When you go in the voting booth this year in November, remember, whoever becomes the leader is who you put in there. I'd like to thank you all for joining this broadcast, and I hope that you have a wonderful day.